funny, man. I'm not much on Instagram, so I don't know, man. I'm
Look, that's
coming
that's
on
all
now.
of us. We are all challenged by Instagram. Good to see you, sir. I was just letting folks know how you are a forefather and important person in this culture. You are one of the contributors of the first generation of writers who took to the walls and streets of New York. And so I appreciate you taking the time to join us for this talk.
Thank you, man.
It's really important for us to showcase pioneers like yourself, not just in the museum, but support you through these artist talks and let people know, keep your name alive, keep your story alive as we keep moving further and further from your generation in this culture. So what I want to do to start this conversation, because it's so perfect, because I was on your Facebook and I saw an image that you posted that I think is good to start this conversation with you. And so I'm going to set up my camera here so that we are perfectly aligned with the computer. And the image that I saw, and it may be hard for folks to read, but it says future generations will find these and make value deductions about our lives. And it's somebody scribbling on the wall. And yet here we are making valuable deductions of your life and your culture. So we'll start with New York City. So you're a New Yorker, a true New Yorican.
Definitely.
Tell me about your growing up in New York. What years were they? I know you're a civil rights baby from the '60s. Tell us about New York. What was New York like for you as a young boy?
As a young boy, New York City it was always something to see. 'Cause I lived in the projects in Spanish Harlem, and that's where I was born and raised. And then after that, when I was 10 years old, I moved to Washington Heights, and then that's another story. That's where I started my graffiti. But being raised as a kid in Spanish Harlem, and then I had both my grandmothers in Spanish Harlem. I had one in Black Harlem. So I'm originally from Harlem, everywhere in that part of the borough. But life was so much different, man. And it's hard to explain, but it was more friendly, not friendly, but safer. Let's put it that way. And
Even, I mean, considering that you were coming out of the civil rights era,
yes,
that must have been
it was. You had to be, and especially in those days, you did have to watch your back, but it was not much really to when you were, the civil rights was another thing that was somewhere else, but as growing up as a kid, I didn't even think about these things. I just wanted to enjoy life, and I was, and it was not easy in a way. I mean, it was not easy for all of us. I have to say that the kids today, we really take good care of them, man. I mean, I'm not saying my mother didn't take care of me because I lived without a father, and she was the best mom I had. But it was so much different. You was able to go outside. I was able to go outside 6, 7, 8 years old in the projects, and it was safe for me, to get back home. Nowadays, everything's different now. It's a wild, crazy life we're living into right now. Things are so crazy.
Of course, but also you saw the Vietnam War. That you're that generation where young men were being sent away to fight a war.
Well, I was too young to be remembering that. I was actually born in 1957, so you're making me seem like I'm much older, man.
Oh, you remember you lived through those things. I remember when I first started writing in the '70s, my uncle had just gotten back from Vietnam. and that was like a shocking thing for me, because he came back wounded. And
Yeah, I was a young kid and at that time, and
right,
I didn't really focus on that.
right.
Uh,
And so when you moved up to Washington Heights, that's where all
yes,
the action was, right? That's where all the graffiti was. Uh,
that's where.
with,
Yes,
with Taki, where,
I moved
where
up there
was
when
it
I was
that?
10 years old, and I started graffiti at the age of 13 years old in 1970. And in those years, the early 70s was crazy too. It was like the Wild Wild West, man. And I think today we're sort of like living that style again, you know. And but it was really out of hand, man. The gangs and there was no control of the city. Was going on. Everything was really crazy in those days, man.
Right. And so, but the writing was important, right? Because it was something that would just show up all over your neighborhood and in your schools. So when you started writing, what was the first influence? What gave you the idea, first off, to write, and number two, to give yourself a name, like Snake?
Okay, the reason why I started writing or tagging was in those days we lived in the street. We didn't have computers or video games, and we were always in the street looking for things to do. We were bored, sitting on a stool. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's go play some basketball. Let's play Chinese handball. Let's play stickball. You know, it was so much different, and so it was a different lifestyle altogether. Then, as far as my name Snake, I got my name from. If you could see my T-shirt, that this is how I got my name. My uncle used to take us to the drag strip to watch drag racing, and Don Podome, the snake, was my favorite racer, and that's how I got my name, Snakes. And a lot of people don't know that. And also, I have my Snake Hot Wheel car since I was a kid. It's in perfect condition, man. You know, it's my little toy, man. I still collect toys, man. But that's how I got my name because of Don Podome.
So, so once you got your name, were you already? Give us an idea of at that point. You're 13, so what? You're like probably in the sixth grade or seventh grade at this point.
But in seventh grade. No, yes, sixth grade. Yeah, you're right. And but let me say something. I started writing Snake 188 first before Snake One.
Do
But
you
when
have a
graffiti got
preference?
hot and it was blown out of proportion, the police knew what the 188 meant. So they know I lived on 188th Street. So I changed it to Snake One. And and then from there it just stayed. It stayed.
Yeah, at that point when you started writing, the obviously early on there was just random writing on the streets. Did you have did you have anybody else that alongside you, your friends at that age, who said, "Hey, let's bomb together, let's write together, let's
I had my neighborhood friends. They were we all we did it for fun, but I continued doing it after they stopped, and it just it was in my blood to I just fell in love with it. But I started after I started seeing Tacky 183 all over the neighborhood and all over the city because I lived in 188th Street. So my neighborhood was the first one that he really tagged up. And I just caught on to it. I said, but I don't understand. What is the meaning of this? Damn, I said, so I said, man, I want to do what he's doing. I want to put my name on his block too. So, that's how I got started, man. And it started with tags, magic markers, no spray paint.
right." And it was on walls, and it's interesting because most people Your generation was really aptly the wall riders, and then eventually became the subway riders. But you ended up writing with Stitch One, who's real. I remember his tags back in my day, and but also Cat 87. This slide that we're showing with a Stitch One tag, a Snake One tag, and a Diana 176 tag. It's curious to me because oftentimes people don't talk about girl writers from that period.
Hmm.
Who was Diana 176?
Well, I actually put her name up. That was my girlfriend in from junior high school.
Uh, okay. So now, when you were writing back then, were there any active girls that you knew or associated with?
Not really in the beginning, no. And then when the females started popping up, we all know it was Eva 62, Barbara 62,
Yeah.
Drama 65, Rocky 184. So, but then, you know, it just spread out. Right now, today, you got so many female artists, beautiful artwork they do too. I flip out over the work they do. I mean, they do better work than the guys, man.
Well, we're seeing an incredible generation of women style writers now
There you
throughout the
go.
world. I'm happy to see. In this image, what's interesting I like about this image, you see a couple things happening here. You see the Crazy Cross 136 tag, which is very simple. It's like no style to it really. Then you see the Joe 136. Of course, the Phase 2 and Lee 163 have a lot of style for that period. Barbara 62, we mentioned the girls. So
Yes.
she was also well known in that period, wasn't she?
Yes.
And then, of course, the FDT 56 tag, I would believe, is much later than the Phase and the Lee tag there.
Oh, he was there early on too, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was early, but I think that signature is too well developed,
I got you.
knowing his earlier tags.
It came
Also,
later.
again, that whole thing, which is interesting to me about writing, right? It was kind of style, but really not really a lot of style. Like you can see with
No, it
Junior
was just
161.
letters, man. What we learned in school, the alphabet.
And that was it, right? There was no reference for
That's
this.
it.
You were referencing
See,
each other, I
but
would
see,
imagine.
but Junior, he had a different style. You know, look at his U and it's square. You know, so he added a style to those letters.
Oh, you know what? I'm glad you said that because I think it's important to know that something we take for granted now because we're much more developed, that something like a square U and an N and even the J kicking out like that was style, was a lot of style
Mhm.
for back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know, everybody had a different. Not I won't say style, but uh, well, a different name first of all, and different letters. So everybody had a different style for their particular letter. But back in the days, I mean, you just threw your tag up. You didn't care if it looked nice or nothing like that. You just had to tag as many places as you can, and as far as looking pretty and all that, that wasn't part of the game.
No. I have a question for you. During this period, um, there was graffiti writing in Philadelphia already, Cornbread and those guys. Were you aware of them at all at that time?
No, not really, man.
That's interesting. Okay, so now here we see a Stitch One and a Snake One tag on a train. All right, so now we're moving from the walls to the train. Tell me about your first train experience of sneaking into the train yard or layup, or did you motion tag first?
I was mostly motion tag and inside trains, just like the
Explain to people
buses.
what motion tagging is.
Motion tag is when the train pulls into the station, and once it stops to open the doors and let people out, you had to write your name quick before the doors close back. So back in the days, we just did simple tags. So we were able to do that in a couple of seconds. Yeah. See, these tags here were done in the train yard, though.
Right. These are train tag. And one of the reasons I pulled this up because this is interesting because we see the signatures compared to the previous slide where you see the signature with no outline. Over here, you start seeing like SJK and Mike 171 outlining their signature,
Yes.
which it was kind of innovative. If you look at some of the trains from that period, where they had no outline, it was just tagging on the
Yes.
outside.
Yes. Yep. You're right, man.
One
That's
of the things I found a slide that was interesting because one, you're known for writing often "King of all snakes," and
you dig.
I found this image and I said, "There's a snake tag," and I asked you if that was you, and you said no. And I know other people have picked up on that name Snake. Uh, Tell me about that. Tell me about the name and trying to own the name amongst other writers that were writing the same name.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that because when I started writing Snake 188, nobody else had that name. Well, first of all, there wasn't that too many graffiti writers doing their thing. But then I started seeing a lot of other snakes. If I remember clearly, I counted like over 20 snakes, but most of them were toys. But you had Snake 131, you had Snake 77, and Snake 2, but since I was the first one, and I believe I got up more than they did, then I had to consider myself the king of all snakes. You dig?
Did in those periods when you had those kinds of um, challenges of somebody taking your name or writing your name, or even going over you, did you have beef? Like my generation, wasn't afraid to fight over writing. Did your generation fight over writing, over going over each other or taking names?
No, we didn't fight, and we didn't tag over people's names. You
Yes.
know, there was a lot of respect, and what it was, I used to love seeing names around my name. So why would I tag my name on top of your name? It's, no, seeing a war with just tags that was like heaven, man. It was, it was your signature in a way.
One of the things, and to that point, as we look at both how you guys were painting on trains and walls, and I like what you say about giving each other respect, because you could see this on the trains themselves where people aren't really going over each other. Um, but also on this one canvas where you, SJK, Coco, Stitch, Cat, Mike 171, and again here we see you uh, professing Snake One, King of all snakes. And I love all the design that you started putting into. So here we start seeing design elements in this period, not just by you, but also Phase Two and Coco and Henry. Something's going on at this period where it's not just signing a name. What was going on amongst you guys?
I guess we started seeing our name too much, and we wanted to add flavor to it to change the look of it, maybe, or the style. It started getting fancy after, I guess looking at your name just plain. So we didn't add much to it. You still could read everyone's names. You could understand every letter. So all we did is add a cloud, a star, or bubbles around the name, and arrows, and then the crowns started. But it was basically what you see right here. And it's funny that I'm looking at this painting here. it's funny because these are all Washington Heights artists here, but this is a UGA painting, United Graffiti Artists. That's what it stands for. But you don't see none of the Bronx guys there. So because you had Phase Two, you had Lee 163, you had Taboo One, and many more. And
Yeah.
but I just find it strange that maybe we did that in my apartment. Who knows?
You know, one of the things that, you know, for this period, which is interesting, and I see Mike 171, who's a legend, comment, we didn't have to watch our backs in this period, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting, which leads me into this next period, because one of the things I was curious about was, you know, obviously there was, you know, the traditional street graffiti and subway graffiti, but there was also gang graffiti. And I'm curious as to how that played out for you being uptown, especially because you come from Harlem and there was so many gangs both in East and West Harlem and uptown. How did you avoid getting mixed up in that, or did you get mixed up in you know, in gang culture of New York City of that period?
Well, the gang graffiti, that was for them to mark their turf. So Savage Nomads was basically in Washington Heights. So if you come from the Bronx, the Black Spades, we were tight with them. You knew whose turf you were entering, so you knew you were safe there. You know? And then
So as a writer, did you get a pass when you went into these neighborhoods because you were a writer?
it was not easy. You had to be careful because if they knew I was from the Savage Nomads neighborhood and not the Galaxies neighborhood, the Galaxies were a tougher gang that came later on, and nobody fucked with them, man. You know, they were basically Dominicans. And they were like in the 163rd Street and around that area. But so you had to be careful if you're going to go write your name over there, you know. So, you know, but graffiti had nothing to do with gangs. Gang was something else, and graffiti was something else. But you did have a lot of graffiti writers who became gang members, which I didn't. I was actually joined twice by the Savage Nomads to join, but that wasn't my thing, you know. So I stuck with graffiti and just playing basketball, man. That was my shit.
Nice. And of course, years later, you know, Hollywood comes into the picture and the Warriors come out. And in a weird way, for a lot of us, we got to see a lot of early graffiti through this movie. As much as they sensationalized gang culture, the graffiti was so amazing to me to be able to see so much graffiti. I mean, mind you, this is much later than your generation.
Yes.
But it was a kind of an interesting take on you know, the culture of New York in that time. And of course, you wrote with two important writers for you, your good friends, Cat 87 and Stitch One. And I found this really, really wonderful image that I absolutely love this image for a lot of reasons. It tells me a lot about that time. Notably, that Stitch and Rocky went out. I see the Stitch One and Rocky 184.
Yes.
I also see Mike 171 on this wall, yourself, Turk. But I think
Yeah.
I want to emphasize the style, right? Because in here, one of the things that I see is on top of the signature, now they start putting little dots in to be design elements of the fill-in. And Stitch One did something really rather interesting. He started putting little stars in his tag, whereas this snake tag on the side, you put stars all around your signature. And we see your E being very stylized now. Do you remember this particular wall?
I remember that particular day 100%. That was the first time I met a lot of people at that event, like K161, Junior 161, and this was done at City College. This is the first time we all got together. Uh, Hugo Martinez, he had teach there, and he went around all the neighborhoods looking for graffiti writers. It's funny. He approached my stepdad and he asked, "Is your son Snake?" My stepdad said, "No, no, no. He's smart. He didn't want to. He thought he was a cop." But what happened? Hugo was getting everybody recruited to meet at City College to tag our name. That was actually big sheets of paper on the wall. And
Okay.
yes, this is the first time that UGA, I believe, was formed. This is the first time we ever met. First time I ever met Coco 144. And it's funny that I was with Cat and Web 2 and Stitch, and we couldn't find the building, man. So we kept going to every building on the campus. When we entered this one building, all we smelled was spray paint. Then we say, "Oh shit, this is the place, man." You know, we got there a little late, but we were able to tag our names there. I definitely remember that day, man. Memories, man. Thanks for showing that.
Nice. Yeah, because I thought it was a wall. It doesn't really look like paper to me, but okay, I get it. You know, of
Yeah.
course, you know, you continue writing and getting up. I think some of the images that we're seeing now are some of your earliest tags. This one, I would imagine, is one of your super early tags.
Yes, man.
And again,
Yes.
going back to what you were saying, that you guys were giving each other space.
Yeah. You see that? You didn't write on anybody's name, you know?
Yeah, but you did something really unique here, and that's give yourself a cloud or a force field
I
several
know.
times.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I guess I just wanted to make my name stand out more because this wall was directly across the street from Writers Corner, 188. So,
Right. Tell me about Writer's Corner 188. Let us, because that was historic. Why 188? Who decided 188th Street?
it was a corner that, very quiet corner, and Rocky 184 used to live across the street from me on 188th Street. This was on Audubon Avenue. And Stitch One was Roxanne's first boyfriend. So I got to know him. I didn't know he was a graffiti artist too. So we connected. And that's how we became partners in crime. Because Rocky lived right up the block. But Stitch is the one who invented Writer's Corner. It was his idea.
Was that the first Writer's Corner?
Yes, that was the first. And I mean, now you got thousands of corners, man. But
I'm wondering why it was on the street and not in a train. Eventually came down to the subways.
I guess because I know there was a writer's bench and there was other spots, but I guess because that was basically Stitch's corner to always wait for Rocky to come and meet him, and so I guess I think that was a very brilliant, smart Stitch part by making that corner something. Who would think of something like that? Let's make this corner a writer's corner, and we invite people to come. And people came, man. They came from Brooklyn, they came from the Bronx just to tag their name there, and that's how we met other artists. And it was a real pleasure to meet some of the other graffiti artists out there, or
Is that where the
superstars.
tradition of trading outlines and signing books really started?
Not at Writer's Corner, but it continued there. Black books, what it was, you fell in love with tags. You love tagging your name on the wall and everything. So why not? Can I have your tag? So, I love your tag. Can I have it? So black books were invented, and that was like your little encyclopedia, or even your. Because I learned a lot from other names and other people, and still today, I'm still learning about graffiti. That it's strange, but I'm still learning.
Yeah, I would agree. And also that the one thing that I like that you said that you were collecting signatures to learn. Um, I did that too, but I was also a fan of other writers. I always still, I still feel the same way when I see you guys. I'll ask for a signature. Uh, but again, moving on from the signature, you know, we start seeing that on the trains, a couple things, and I like what I see in this picture. There are a couple things to point out about the two names, right? Um, you know, you had Superbad 229, Kid Yoke 72, um, Cool Cage, and then you have this piece, this outline piece, Nigga Charlie. Um, Tell me about that period about names, because how popular two names were. Because I started writing Nightmare. It wasn't Mare 139 at first. It was Nightmare, picking up from people like Box Top 149, Stay High 149, Superstrut. How prevalent was that, having two names during your period?
First of all, you had to try to look for a good name to fit yourself. And in those days, even if you wasn't a graffiti writer, you had to get a name. So you had two names, like you said, and you had the females on my block, Pinky, Rocky, but as far as the names, man, you just had to get a name that really fits yourself. Like, look at this, Straight Man. That's Lava, one and
Lava,
two.
rest in
He was
peace.
a straight man. He was tall and straight up, man. Man, he rest in peace, man. But he had look at how long that name was. Come on, it
Yeah,
wasn't like a Cat 87. Look at straight man, like Super Cool 223.
right.
These people they took more
But
time to write their name. It was more of a challenge not to get caught, and so they were sort of brave and they just did what they loved doing. That's it, man.
I happen to like this piece. I'd never seen it before, and it seems like a worm style. I don't know if he intended that, uh, but it looks illustrative, especially with the S and the T, like it's a worm. But here again, this goes to what was going to happen right after this. You get phase two, innovating, um, you know, the
Right,
bubble style. The
right.
you know, what was that like? You know, as you guys look on to this change, to this radical change, going from a tag to a bubble style and outline style.
And
1 second before you answer that, thank you, Ket, for identifying the straight man style as candy cane style. It's I'll just go back to it, so I guess that you
yeah,
can see that it's a candy cane. Okay. Um, but Phase, tell me about Phase and his impact when you were coming up.
when I was doing graffiti at an early age, like I said, I had looked up to other people. I love their signatures. Phase happened to be one of my favorite ones. Coco 144. These two were my favorites. But Phase, he invented a lot of stuff. The bubble letters, a different style. He was very creative, and he's the one who invented the word toy. I just found this out. Yeah, he's the one who invented the
Yeah, I
word
had no
toy.
idea.
A toy is someone who doesn't get up, but think he's a master. No, you're a toy. And he's the one who invented Hot 110. Hot 110 was a name that if I didn't like you and I wanted to cross your name, put an X, instead of putting my name on top of your name, I Hot 110 your name. That was like an X.
Yeah.
So Hot 110 became famous. If I didn't like you, I put Hot 110 on your name, then you won't know who did it. So you knew you had an enemy out there. So that makes it even more scarier. Shit.
I always thought it was the cops or the work bums that did that for some reason.
Nah, Phase Two was the one who invented those
So of
words.
course, you know, he's innovating, and one of the things we see in the next photo is the influence on you. And we could see here on this wonderful loose leaf paper, an old Snake One tag. I mean,
I,
piece rather.
I,
And what I happen to like about it is that at the bottom of the end you put dice.
yes.
How genius is that? Tell me about this drawing. Tell me about now. All of a sudden, it's not the signature. You're an
Man,
illustrator now.
you know, I did this drawing. If you see, that's on loose leaf paper.
Yeah.
I did this drawing as I was in class. The teacher's talking and trying to teach us, and here I am. I'm doing this on the side. The year is on it too. It says 1975. So this was from high school. But I really like this painting, and I don't. Maybe I should mention it. But if you look at that drawing real good, and you look at the S real good, you see.
Oh yeah, that's a penis head. Oh
Yeah.
shit. You
And I
drew a
showed this. I had this shown in the museum, man, in Sweden. And it's
no.
funny. It was not a museum; it was a gallery. It's funny. These graffiti artists of Sweden, they saw it and they say real loud, "Oh shit, that's a dick." I said, "Yo, there's people here in this. There's people
Wow.
here, man."
Can you guys see that on the S? You see a penis ejaculating, but what's with the flames around it? Um, you
Man,
catch the clap?
that, no, no, man. It was just something that you just created as you was drawing. Like today, if I go paint a mural on the wall, I don't bring a sketch with me. I'm going to paint it like this. No, whatever's in my mind, I do.
Yeah.
So that was in my mind at that time.
And what the dice? What's the reference for the dice?
Guys, I guess when I was in high school, man, across the street, I went to Alfred E. Smith in the Bronx. Across the street, they used to throw dice all the time, man. On the breaks and lunch breaks, and I didn't play, but they used to play for money, man, big time. So I guess that was part of what I saw growing up. All my friends playing dice, and
So
yeah,
you said this is 1975. So
yes,
I'm going to go back in time a little bit. Something that really important that predates this, and this is 1973, and this is a copy of the New York Times, September 1973. Graffiti goes legit, but the show-off ebullience, as they say, remains. So this was the Razor Gallery. This was like blockbuster. This was an amazing moment in the culture, and also for you young kids to be recognized and show your work in a proper gallery space. I want to know more about this, like who organized the Razor Gallery, and what were you guys thinking when this was starting to take shape?
Razor Gallery was located on West Broadway in the Village, and this was the first gallery that ever exhibit graffiti. So we were the first one to exhibit our artwork in galleries. And it's funny, we didn't really consider ourselves artists, and we didn't look at this as artwork. We look at this as what we did in the streets. And we were amazed. We were surprised, and we were shocked, man. Wow, we have our paintings in the gallery, and we were very young too, like you said. We were like
Let
15
me ask
years
you a
old.
question. How many of you at that point were exposed to art and art history in general?
How many of us? You mean
The writers, yeah.
well, in the early '70s, graffiti just got blown out of proportion, and it went. It just blew up, man, and so I mean, it spread like a disease, man. But as far as
So the world of museums and galleries was completely foreign to you.
yes, there was no such thing as showing your artwork or your graffiti. Well, in the gallery, what, man? And we were kids. I mean, we couldn't believe it ourselves.
were you guys planning on selling these works, or were they just for exhibit?
Yes, yes, yes. I sold at that show there. I sold 3 paintings,
How did that
and
feel?
oh, it felt good, man. It felt good. I mean, who would have ever thought, damn, I'm going to sell graffiti? You know, and and still today, galleries get 50%, 50-50. So in those days, my 3 paintings, they was not big, but a nice size. They sold for $300 each. So what I got, 150 each for them?
Right.
Well, in those days, that was a little chump change for me to go hang out and have a good time, man.
Right. And I have a question for you. Did you share this with your parents? Did your parents come see the art show? Were they anti-graffiti?
A little bit. I don't remember if they came to this show, but they started coming to some shows I had later on. I think they caught on to it, and they wanted to support me, and in a way to keep me out of trouble from doing it in the street.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of putting it in galleries.
I mean, this must have been so mind blowing, and I can't zoom into the Flint so much, but that what's important to me in this as well is the contrast between the wall where you, Coco, JR, and everybody are up on this collaboration, and here you have Flint with a Flint style piece with a 3D with no outline. He's giving his piece volume. And then again, he's being very sophisticated about the stripes, that are stripes in the cloud that are these transparencies running through his name. And then flames. I guess Flint was, he came to burn.
Yeah, man. He had his own style. The 3D. He was one of the first ones to start the 3D.
Right.
He's from Brooklyn, and I just love that painting, man.
Yeah.
I think he blew everybody away for that one, man.
Yeah. This, and he also did something similar on the train, which was really
Yes,
impressive.
he did. That's right.
Always, and I always talk about 3D graffiti starts there, and that with him. But also after Razor, again, and this predates UGA, which would come 2 years later, right? You were mentioning Hugo Martinez and meeting at the university, and you guys organizing yourselves. It was tell us about UGA, because the lineup is crazy. If I could just name some, I just feel like I have to name some of these guys because they're legends. You have Bama, Cat 87, Coco 144, Flint 707, Lee 163, Miko, Nova 1, Phase 2, Me 163, Flip 1, Riff 170, SJK, Slim 1, Snake 1, Spanky 132, Stitch 1, Super Stuff, Taboo, T-Rex, Wicked Gary. I mean, and it goes on. That for that time, that's an all-star lineup, isn't it?
Yes, man. Yeah, I'll tell you, T-Rex 131. He was one of the first artists to do top to bottoms.
Was he? I didn't know that.
Yes, not so many people know that. He was one of the first ones to do a top to bottom.
He would paint in a style called Broadway elegant.
Nah,
No,
he would paint a style called Philadelphia style.
Right, it comes from Philly, right?
Yeah,
but
but he was a Broadway. Yeah, he was a Broadway writer. Right. Yes,
I learned it as Broadway elegant, and I loved that elongated style. So tell me about this. When you guys got to the university, is that when, from that previous paper tags that we were talking about, was it then that you guys decided, let's organize ourselves as a group, as UGA?
Yes, it was then we decided to meet for the second time in Hugo's apartment, which we did, and I believe Channel 7 was there, and that's how UGA was formed.
Wow, you guys had press present?
Yeah, man. Yeah, we were. I remember my first TV station I was on. I was Channel 13, and you know it's funny, man, because I was home with my parents and well, my mom and my sister. I didn't want my mother to see me on TV, so I didn't tell her about it, man. So man, so I was on TV with Stick One, and I forgot who else it was, and yeah, man, but yeah, you know, and meeting all these other guys, it was just like a treasure, man, you know, because we all knew each other's names from seeing them on trains, but we never knew each other in person. So that was even another extra bonus, man, for us. Oh shit, man. You that guy? It's like when I first met Stay High 149. Me and Stitch One, we were on 89th Street train station, the Broadway line, 89th Street, and you have 4 tracks there because you have the 2 express in the middle. You got the uptown, downtown, and 2 express trains in the middle. So me and Stitch was on the uptown side, and Stay High was on the downtown side, and he saw me and Stitch spray paint on there with black spray paint on the wall, and he said, "Yo, can I borrow your paint?" I said, "Sure, you know, come and get it." He crossed the tracks halfway, then we threw him the can. Then he went back to the downtown side. He put his name, Stay High 149. Me and Stitch look at each other and said, "Oh shit, that's him?" God damn, bro. We were happy to see who he was, man. And he saw who we was, and you know, Stay High 149. He's in that photograph right now, and he was the oldest one in UGA to be family with us, man. Yes,
right there, rest in
right.
peace.
Thank you, man. He was a gentleman, very smart. He was also voice of the ghetto, which he was the voice of the ghetto.
Yeah. So that's amazing. So now, when you guys were now forming this collective, what were the goals? What was the aim that Hugo had for you guys to legitimize yourselves as artists, as gallery artists?
I would say yes. Even though that was our first show, we didn't really consider ourselves artists. And that painting there is a 30-foot canvas, 30 feet by 8 feet. And we did like 3 of them. Actually, that one sold at the Razor Gallery, I believe, for $3,000. Look at that. 3,000? That's it?
Wow.
Man. But you see how everybody had their own style, and they didn't dare like come across your name or interfere with your name. Everybody knew how much space they had to do their name.
Right.
And we respected that among each other.
Yeah, and you know what? You guys, as a collective, also did something important. That idea transfers over into the Joffrey Ballet production that you did, and this I always thought was a phenomenal project. Tell us about this project.
That was so awesome, man! Unbelievable. I mean, we were on cloud 9, man. We couldn't believe that we were there painting in the background while the Joffrey Ballet is dancing, and those where our names are on, those are 3 big sheets of paper. And what it was, as we were painting, they were moving up towards the ceiling very slow throughout the whole show while they were dancing. And they gave us enough time to write your name across. So, so we were there throughout the whole show while they were dancing. And we were scheduled to do 10 nights with them. But what happened, they kicked us out because we misbehaved.
Not the smell of spray paint?
No, man. Because we used to go in their dressing rooms to get ready to go onto stage. So when we were in their dressing rooms, we used to take their costumes out and play with them. And, you know, we were having fun, man. You know? So they got mad at us. So they told us, don't come back. So we didn't, they kicked us out. So what happened, the next day, the next performance, they had little kids replace us and they were just drawing little houses and little cartoons and little
Oh,
stick figures, and the audience was angry. They didn't want to see that. They wanted to see us. They called us up right away. No, 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 no. We want you to come back. Yeah, man. So that it was made. It was basically our show because this was something new to the city. You know, come on,
yeah.
who?
I always say this was so phenomenal because this brings high culture and low culture together to meet in the middle. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you got the Joffrey Ballet and Martha Graham, uh, you know, the choreographer, those names are big names in the dance world. All of a sudden, imagine these little teenagers thrown on such a big stage. I mean, it's phenomenal. You're at rock star status at this point.
Yes, definitely, man.
Do you have any idea what happened with with the backdrops?
No, man. Who man, who knows if they threw it away or maybe somebody saved them? I really don't know, man. We never even thought about that. Who knows if Hugo has them?
Right, you never know.
You never
Here,
know, bro.
here I see a snake with love next to Coco and
Yes,
Jack
make one with love. That's right,
and
man.
Stitch and Mike and Flip. I mean, what a lineup! This is just so impressive.
Thank
Um,
you.
and here you see Hugo, I guess talking to somebody about writing. But again, look at the background. Look at all the amazing styles and writers that were up.
Man, you know,
So this in this time, you know, so let's just say that you're getting a bit of notoriety. Graffiti's getting some notoriety because that, you know, that happens. Of course, the Faith of Graffiti had just come out as well. And what kind of an impact did this have for you guys to be published?
it was a big impact because, like I said before, we never expected this to happen. I mean, you could think about it today, you know, say, wow, this is graffiti's worldwide now, man. You know, who would have known back in those days when I started doing it, or we started doing it as 13-year-olds, and that this would have been like $1 billion business today, you know. And what I've been doing lately, I've been going to the colleges and talking to the students about it. I did it in Sweden. I went to 3 different colleges. I've done it here, City College. I've done it in other places. It's funny. I told the students, I said, "Watch, one day you're gonna see graffiti on the moon, man." And then they all laugh and shit.
Well, you know, they laughed at us when we said you know we were going to be in the museums and that we'll be in MoMA, and here we are. You know, we're in MoMA, Whitney, and we opened up our own museum here in Miami, the Museum of Graffiti. So it's really you might be right. You might see it in the moon for sure. Another publication that was really important was this, the cover of New Yorker magazine in 1973. And you told me something interesting because I'd seen the cover, but I didn't see the interior. But it was interesting how they decided to write about graffiti. Maybe you could tell us about how they went about doing this with you, rather, Snake, Phase, and Stay High, and others.
And this article that came out in New York Magazine in 1973, it was a big article. It was like maybe 2, 4, 6, 8 pages of stories and about us. And this one particular page here, you had 4 different artists there representing 4 boroughs. You had the top one, Nova. He was representing Brooklyn. Snake One representing Manhattan. Phase Two representing the Bronx. Then Stay High was a combination of all the boroughs. And when this magazine came out, I mean, I think it made me proud in a way, man. You know, because this is what I love doing, and this was when we were in UGA also. You know, it was something that nobody ever did before. So this was the first magazine ever published on graffiti.
It's like they actually spoke to you, right? They interviewed
Yes,
you.
they did.
They
Yes, they
featured you.
interviewed us.
So
Yes.
that's pretty amazing, right? To be a young teenager from the hood and all of a sudden being recognized.
Yeah, yeah, it is
There's levels,
amazing.
you know. I got to tell you, man, I used to hear these stories when I was a kid, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, could you really? Could you do this from graffiti? Was this? I mean, you guys laid down the foundation, a proper foundation for us to kind of run with.
Thank
Um,
you.
and and so it's important to people for people who are not familiar with graffiti history to realize this, that yeah, you guys were the first, you know, famous celebrity graffiti artists
Thank you, man. Yeah,
that
for
were
sure.
considered. You guys were laying down this platform not just of writing but style, not just of style, of design, and of communication design as well. So props to you guys. That's a huge happening. Also, you know what I like, you know, I found this is you were a kid and here you are. Is this a canvas or a board?
Canvas. Yeah, that's a canvas, and
So was this
that
part of
was,
this was in UGA?
yes, that was that was done around 1973. And it's funny, I duplicated that painting like three other times, but people wanted a copy. There's a one there, yeah. And so that was my checkerboard snake, I called it, man. That was my in my Bronx apartment, and
But let me ask you something. As you're starting to get creative, right, and you're finding your talent, you are exploring different ways to paint your name, uh, and it's all about the name. Did you ever consider something other than the name artistically? Were you interested in drawing comic books or figurative works?
no, not really. But I've known other people who got into the comic book or club advertisement. You see this painting right here? That was actually the very first graffiti painting ever sold at the Razor Gallery. I was the first person to ever sell a painting, even though everybody else sold paintings. Everybody did good at the Razor Gallery. Everybody sold paintings. But this was actually the very first painting ever sold, and was sold to a lady by the name of Yolanda Sanchez. And she was a big woman. Her name was up there in the political world. And so I just want to let everybody know that was the first painting I ever sold.
Amazing. And then we pull forward into contemporary work, and here you're doing more abstract and expressive work. Um,
Yeah, I did that in the early 80s. And I kind of like that style because it reminded me of a phase two style.
right. So again, it's something that never left you. You actually kept painting over the years, and you get together with the guys every year. And thankfully, the world is recognizing you for what you've contributed, and you get to travel around the world to both exhibit and to talk to other artists and young people about this
Mhm.
culture. Um, and again, you are part of an important legacy of writers. And, you know, I'm going to pause here because there's a little bit left, and we have just a minute with Instagram. So, folks,
Okay.
just bear with us. Stay on. I'm just going to save the video and then rejoin you all, and then we'll pick it up from here. Thank you again to everybody for joining me and Snake One, and we'll be right back.